Okay. Welcome, welcome. So this is leveling up your MBA admissions consulting practice. We've done trainings like this in the past, but this one is probably I think the first time one we've done that's specific to MBA. We obviously hear so much feedback from customers. We hear feedback from coaches. We love it. Keep sending it our way. And we felt like it was worth us just kind of aggregating that and presenting it to you and getting your thoughts and your feedback as well, because you obviously have lots of ideas and are on the front lines. So I also coach. I have about 5 clients every cycle, which is fun. And everyone on the Leland team has an active coaching profile. So we all can kind of empathize with the bugs and the pain that come up occasionally. And then we also get to taste the fun parts of coaching too. So I want this to be interactive. So if you have ideas, I will probably move through this stuff as fast as we can, just because we do have a lot to cover and we will probably have lots of insights. But yeah, would love for this to be interactive. So if you have questions or comments, please jump in. So the goal for today is to help you level up so that you can earn more money and make more customers happy and help them reach their goals. We found that one of our customer values is make customers win, because we've just found that if we do that, it's good for coaches, it's good for the business, it's good for customers, of course, it's good for everyone. And so, helping you be better at your jobs and us be better at our jobs by learning from you will ultimately help everyone win. So very, very excited to do this today, and we can do more in the future. I hope this is a space where um, people can actually build community, build relationships, and learn from each other. So a couple of you, I think one thing I wanted to call out, and some of you have actually like walked across this path, probably all of us at some point, of kind of being a new coach, amateur coach, whatever you want to call it, kind of someone new to this world, and kind of walking across that bridge to being a professional coach. I think, and we see this on Leland, right? We have amateur coaches on the platform, and I think that's okay. There's lots of value that can come from someone that's a little bit more affordable, that can be helpful, or maybe in a specific niche can help a specific background. I think on the MBA admissions consulting side, there's lots of appetite for real professionals that know what they're doing, and can really, I guess, for a premium price, help people reach their goals. And so we want to mint as many professionals as we can, not to create more competition for you, but because the business is growing so much that we know we'll be able to support you. And we think that this can be the default place. We are now the largest MBA admissions platform in terms of number of people, by kind of a lot. And so this is, as we do that, we've moved up market. There are lots of people spending lots of money on coaching. Many of you obviously have seen this. So just kind of talk through like some of these differences. So amateur coaches are helpful. They're great. They also can sometimes feel less available. Sometimes they are the same amount of available. They can just feel less available. And I think there's kind of tactics in how you communicate with your clients, how you set SLAs, how you make them feel not like a burden, but like someone that you've committed to. I think amateur coaches tend to be more reactive, and that can sometimes feel like less prepared or structured. I would say I've certainly fallen into the bucket of amateur coach many times. I'm trying to level up myself as well, and not just be reactive, but actually come with structure and a playbook. I think amateur coaches rely a lot on the playbook that they ran for their own personal application process, which is great. That's obviously super helpful as a starting point. I think if you look at what professionals do, they obviously reflect and build on their playbook and add learnings from their own reflection, what they could have done better and what they've done with other clients. And then amateur coaches, I think, make less money. That is just, that's the reality. We see, there are several coaches making hundreds of thousands of dollars on Leland every single year. And there are several coaches making, about $1,000, $3,000, $5,000 on the platform every year. And so we see the power law in action. And so we know what the best do and are kind of trying to pattern match and communicate. And many of you are the best, which is why you're on this call. So, on the flip side, professionals, I think, are not just helpful, they are life-changing. They have clear SLAs that they communicate with their clients. They bring structure and clarity. They run a playbook that is tailored and different for each person, but there is somewhat of a, hey, we're going to do this and this and this together. They play offense, not just react to customers when they have questions. And they have massive earning potential, especially on Leland, where you can earn money through a number of different means and, can continue to to grow in the platform and increase your ability to earn. So I would love to hear from your perspectives, as some of you have kind of leveled up or been doing this for many years. What do you see as other differences between amateurs and professionals, maybe even in yourself or in other folks that you've worked with? And maybe it can even just come from the lens of what do you do as a professional that you kind of take pride in doing as a professional?
Can I start? I would say a couple things. One is I feel like I know, like, in order to get to the kind of output, awesome stories that we're excited about, can't wait for people to read. I feel like, first of all, I have a pretty good sense, just after doing this so many times with so many different people. I have a pretty good sense of kind of where we are and like where how much we have to work with and how good things are relative to what I was hoping for in the first place.
Mm.
And that's really important. Just being able to kind of measure, okay, like, we're here and we want to be here. And then also, based on that, I also feel like I've gotten a lot better at asking the right questions, so that once I identify what's missing, like, I feel like the person's background just it's just not clicking for me. Like, there's something missing. I feel like I've gotten better at figuring out what that is, or at least how to ask questions that kind of uncover that missing thing.
Yeah.
And asking those questions, usually, I mean, maybe after 4 or 5 tries, maybe after 2 or 3 calls, sometimes it takes forever. Sometimes like hours, but eventually I feel like I get the kind of input that I'm hoping for, that ends up filling in the gap and giving us the awesome story.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks,
Mhm.
Andy. Anyone else have ideas?
I mean, I think what I would add is just being like a true thought partner and coach throughout the entire process. I try and make myself available to clients. I tell them if I'm awake, I will respond to their text messages. And I feel like that is kind of a delineation between amateurs and professionals, is actually being available 24/7 and serving as like a true coach and mentor and partner through the process. And I've gotten feedback from a lot of my clients at the end, like that made a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that. Responsiveness matters a lot. That doesn't mean that you have to be available to drop everything and get on a call for an hour with someone every day. But I think being responsive and communicating well is so big. I completely agree, Elsie. Thanks for that. Carrie, were you going to say something?
I mean, it basically been said. Yeah, just like us building off of those points. The benefit of this being what you do professionally versus what you're doing on the side. I used to do this as sort of a side hustle alongside my full-time role. And in terms of availability, in terms of just the scale and numbers of folks that I was able to support, and with more and more folks you work with, you get to kind of hone your expertise, certainly. And having seen so many folks through this process now, you just get better and better. And it is different in terms of the commitment level. And just doing this on the side versus doing this as kind of your full-time thing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Great. All right, we'll keep going. There'll be lots of opportunity for everyone to jump in and share thoughts. But this is a great place to start. So I wanted to run through 15 things, and obviously that's a lot, but we're gonna cruise through as many of them as we can. If you do have thoughts or things you want to contribute, there is like a raise your hand feature just so I don't miss you, or you can just jump in. We have a small enough group that you can do that. But I wanted to kind of break it down between pre-sale and post-sale. I think there are some people that we've observed through different patterns that are really good at closing clients and like highlighting what they do well. I think we felt like would be helpful for you. And then post-sale, kind of delivering that 10x experience that people will rave about to their friends for years to come, is obviously a huge part of it too. So that's kind of how we've broken it down. But again, would love thoughts and reactions. So I think the first thing that it starts with, your profile or how you position yourself. I actually was talking with Ben about this earlier today. I think we've tried a few different things with certain coaches. Sometimes we'll help coaches say like, all right, you're going to be like the Kellogg coach. And, if anyone has questions about Kellogg, we'll send them your way, or you're going to be the MIT coach. And that has worked okay. I think what we've realized though, is that there is, like it or not, there is a perspective in MBA like with where people want to go to school that matters. And I think it really helps for you as a coach to know how to position yourself in the lens of like where the money is, where the demand is, and what people actually want. So, you may have an applicant that comes in to us and says, "Hey, I'm applying to M7 programs. I'm really interested, especially in, Booth, MIT, and Harvard. And Harvard would just be my dream." And we look at their application, we say, "Okay, we think Harvard might be a stretch for this particular candidate for whatever reason, right? But these other programs, we actually think could be really compelling." The reality is, even if we think that Booth is the best fit for them, if their dream school is Harvard, they are going to pick the coach that can help them with their dream school. And that is like a reality that I just want to call out. And at least, like, maybe it's a hot take or it's something that you guys can think about. And as we've seen coaches that say, "Hey, uh, I am a specialist when it comes to Columbia. However, I actually can, like, I have success stories at the top 3 programs." We've seen their businesses get unlocked in a sense. And so I think it's just worth calling out that, like, how you frame your profile, whether that's, I specialize in Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, I specialize in these 7 schools, or I really like, and by the way, like, there are certain pockets that are big enough to command a specialty. So we do have some people that say, "I'm really good at like school rankings 5 through 15," and they, kind of ignore the top part, and they get people that are interested in that. That is a smaller pool of people. There are lots of folks obviously that come in that say, "My dream school is Stanford. I know I don't really have a shot there, but I'm going to pick a coach that can be really good at Stanford and also help me with the other 6 schools or 5 schools I'm applying to." So I just want to make sure that you guys, as you're positioning yourself on your profile and as you're thinking about how to frame yourself, even in intro calls, it's at least worth you kind of thinking through, how do you talk about your experience with the schools that people really desperately want to go to, in addition to kind of helping them directing them to the schools that maybe they're a better fit for, or just casting a wider net. Any reactions to this? Any people that disagree with this? Would love to hear thoughts.
I think it's so important. I think it's maybe the most important thing, one of the 2 or 3 most important things you can do, especially when you're starting out, especially in the interest of this call. Like, it can be a target, but it can also be like the way you, like, the actual specific functions that you specialize in order for them to get that target. So for me, it was like GSB essays when I started, and I think that there was a lot of natural, like, demand for that niche. But I've seen random, like, I think like Carla might even be the best example of this on the platform, where she just targeted the TBD, the Wharton interview. And it's a time constrained situation. People get that interview, they have a certain turnaround. Everyone's going to want to do a mock. She sets up a class that directly targets that. She's now run that class 15, 20 times probably. I mean, I see, like, she puts up like 3 sessions and then those fill up in maybe a quarter of a second. So she has to put up 3 more. But
Yeah.
regardless of whether she was, I mean, it's probably one of the biggest reasons she became so successful on the platform, is she did that at least for a year now. So I feel like I learned a lot from her. And I think, you can think about, like, is there a specific offering that is super popular on the platform? If not, make it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Ben. I mean, my start came with deferred, right? I was like, deferred MBA. I bought deferredmba.com. I was like, I'm your deferred MBA guy. I'm a little bit cheaper. If you want someone that's better and more expensive, go to Andy. He helped me. He's awesome. And if Andy had someone that couldn't afford him, he'd send him down funnel to me. It was great. We had a little thing going before Leland. I think that's really important. And Carla didn't even go to Wharton, which is so awesome. We had to run that class like 12 times for deferred candidates. And we had to recruit 2 other coaches to do that because there were so many people that wanted help with the Wharton TBD.
And for what it's worth, John, I feel like, just to give you like an idea maybe of how specific you can even go on this, like, I'm thinking about maybe building out, just because I've seen the demand and I've worked with a couple people on this now. And given that I have package clients who I do Wharton prep with, like, I'm thinking about building out a specific offering that is just give me your pitch for that first part of the Wharton interview. We'll review your possible pitches, and then we can do a feedback session. Maybe it's a 30-minute concentrated thing, just as an idea for somebody who, might want to do that.
It's cool. Great. I'm going to keep going. Okay. The second thing that we see pre-sale is the best coaches know how to build trust. This is a trust building exercise. And there's lots of ways to do this. And we obviously think a ton about this at Leland. So events are obviously a great way to do this. We see so much inbound to coaches that host events, and we've now made it a lot easier for you to host events on the platform and for people to reach out directly after. So if you're ever feeling dry on leads, talk to Erica. There's so many events that we're hosting, and we've gotten really good at filling those events. I think it's also really important to talk about your experience and expertise in the context of helping other people, not just in your own journey. This is especially true for people that maybe have graduated more recently or have kind of gone through the process recently. It really helps them understand that you have helped people like them achieve what they want to do. Mike, I was actually talking to Mike before this, who worked with Carrie and got into HBS. He's on our team, which is awesome. Thank you, Carrie. That would have been really embarrassing if we couldn't, help our own employee get into HBS. And he said, when I was on my intro call with Carrie, she said, "Oh, I've helped other PMs get into HBS," and that like stuck with Mike because he, it wasn't like he was asking for this full blown case study. Sometimes they actually do ask for that. But it was like, it was comforting to him that you had helped someone like him achieve his goal. And that's really important. So, whether you have anecdotes or stats or other things. And then the last thing I would mention is that they look to you as the expert. And that doesn't mean you have to know everything. If you don't know something, it almost speaks, more confidence for you to say, "I actually don't know the answer to that question. Let me get back to you. I have this amazing community of coaches I'll go ping, and you can, ping the channel and we'll get the right answer." But there is, I think, a line there where if you don't know anything, or you almost feel like an imposter being the expert, that doesn't communicate trust. So there's kind of like figuring out how to do that well without lying or faking too much, but figuring out how to say, confidently, "Here's what I do know, and here's where I'm really, really good." I think that helps. And for me, I think it can even be about your working style. And we'll talk about this, like setting expectations. What I tell them is like, look, my style is to be in the weeds. I'm like an in the weeds coach. If you just want someone to coach you at a high level and kind of direct you, like I'm not great at that. But if you want someone to like litter your Google Docs, like that's me. I'm going to be super in the weeds. And that helps them like, oh, I know what that means now. And so we can kind of work together. There were some other good ideas.
I'm on Zoom right now. Close the door.
Anyone have additional like things that they do to build trust?
I think one thing that I do that I feel like helps quite a bit is to always just give them a little visibility into what's coming. So I'll say like, okay, we're working on this. After this, like this is what's on my mind. I think we're on track, or like we'll want to kind of, keep the pace up because we're a little bit behind. And I'll just kind of like benchmark versus a couple of my other clients and to get a sense of like whether we're on track versus behind. But I think to give them a sense of like, this is what I'm thinking about in the future, it really helps feel like you're setting the pace and you're kind of leading. So.
Yeah, Tim, actually, one other thing that I've heard that you do well is after your intro calls, you'll send like a little recap to them relatively quickly. That just helps. I think it just helps them feel like, oh, that's what working with Tim would be like. It's structured. It's like he's going to send me a recap. I don't do that. I should do that. Like there's lots of things that I think you can do, and that kind of help with that. Even small things.
Yeah. Maybe like one tip I'll throw out too, John, that relates to that, or just that I've kind of noticed recently is in those messages, I will try to add some of the custom context that we talked about. So like if they're like, "Oh, I'm concerned about this," then I'll be like, that's like in the message, I'll kind of reference that and talk about how we could overcome it, just to give them something to kind of think about, after the
That's
call.
cool.
So, for what it's worth.
Carrie, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say in the intro calls, also like giving them something of value during that conversation. You don't want to have a whole session that you give away for free, and we could have a whole conversation about intro calls another time, I'm sure. But they'll ask for an assessment on their profile, their strengths, their vulnerabilities. We'll talk about a couple things that are, they could be doing right now before they even dive into coaching. And whether or not they end up working with me. I mean, I found that the more thoughtful conversations I have with folks do tend to convert. But leaving them with something so they feel like they got value out of that call and that I was truly listening to them and they get a sense for kind of my working style, the kind of questions I would ask them, I found is a great way to build trust off that.
Yeah, it's so true. It's hard because your time is valuable, and you do sometimes feel like there are people extracting. There are some people that will do that. But the coaches that have like the giving mentality of like, look, I know that that's going to happen, but I'm just going to lead with value anyways, because they're going to think, wow, if this is free, like what's paid? This is going to be great. Like I'm going to get so much more. And I think there's ways to kind of suss out intent as well. But I really like that, Carrie. Thanks for adding. Okay, let's keep going. So the best coaches give a client a clear understanding of what working together will look like. And I think this is also important just for kind of expectation setting. Like, hey, usually when I work with clients, and I tell this to my clients, I say, I'm totally fine to do like a biweekly meeting or a check-in every, maybe it's more regular as we get closer, maybe it's less regular as as we're getting started right now. But I love to do asynchronous work because I feel like it's more productive for both of us. And so I like to drop, as I mentioned, I'm the Google Doc, like I'm going to drop a bunch of comments in your Google Docs. Here's like kind of how I like to work with someone. We've had some coaches that say, I like to do live editing. So if you want to, like, I like to go through your essay live so you can kind of see how I think. We have others that will do kind of a mix. And so I think giving them an understanding of what working with you it will look like is really important because coaching is inherently fuzzy. Like what am I getting? I think a lot of people have never used or worked with a coach. And so they don't know, like, is it literally just I get on a call and you like tell me what to do? Or is it like you're kind of my teammate in this? Or is it like you're my accountability partner? Or is it, there's lots of ways that this could manifest, which is also part of why we're doing this so that we can try to like make everyone better and figure out the best way to do it, or at least for you. But I think that adds some structure and clarity to an inherently unstructured relationship. 4, this is a really important one. The best coaches are not unrealistic, but they are encouraging. Things like, I'd love to work together on, it sounds like Harvard is really exciting for you. I would love to work together on that. I think it's super important for you to understand how challenging, this is, and here's the benchmark, and here, I would be concerned about this, and this, but if you work with me, like I'm on your team, we'll do the best that we can. I also think we should add these schools. I think it's really hard because we do get a lot of customers that come in and just say, oh, I had this call with this coach and it was like so discouraging. And that's just sad because oftentimes, especially when people like are in the general range, like we don't want to be the gatekeepers. We don't want them to gatekeep themselves. We want the schools to be the gatekeeper. And I think sometimes the best way to guide them to the right schools and to build their list is to build trust and to let them know that you do care about them and you will support them on their dreams and their most ambitious goals. But you also are going to be realistic about the risks, the challenges, and where the bar is. So I think the best coaches figure out how to do that gracefully without hurting people, but also like not being so encouraging that they don't trust you, right? They also are hiring you to tell them what the bar is, and so if they feel like you were just lying to them and saying, oh yeah, you're a shoo-in or whatever, that's also not good. So there's kind of this balance that's important to strike. I'm just going to keep rolling. And if you guys have ideas or thoughts, feel free to jump in. We got a lot to cover. The best coaches are good at driving towards bigger commitments, emphasizing the importance of consistent engagement and package services as a way to drive better outcomes. This is a tough one. I think we do see a lot of coaches that will, and it takes some creativity here. And it's not always like an easy playbook. I think it's relatively easy when you get someone that's like, 4 to 6 months out of applying to school. And you can say, great, here's the playbook. This is the right time. Like, let's get going. Here's my package. And that's totally fine. And so we will see a lot of coaches that will say, hey, why don't you just come back to me when it's that time? Which is like one approach. But what we see the best coaches do is like constantly nurturing their book of business. And so we'll see some of them will spin up an early bird package, and they'll say, hey, we're going to meet once every quarter until January. And then in January, we're going to start the deferred MBA journey together. And so I'm going to just build you like a 3-hour, 4-hour package that you're going to buy. And that will guarantee you have a slot with me. And you will need to sign up for me to reserve that slot for you. You will need to sign up for that package by, December 31st, but you have time. And this kind of guarantees that you hold one of those spots, and I won't sell through your spot. And that creates urgency. It creates scarcity. It lets them know that like you are going to book up. And so this is a way to kind of reserve you as a coach, and it doesn't always lead to a comprehensive package, but it does it's much more likely that it leads to a relationship that they want to nurture and maintain. And I think we've noticed that the best coaches kind of build that book of business over time and care for it.
Hey, John, I had a couple thoughts on this one because I think it's like originally when I read it, I actually didn't even know what it meant for some reason, but then it hit me on a few fronts. I think you can, especially in the first conversation, I don't like giving a sense of false scarcity. You give a sense of honest scarcity of yourself and say something along the lines of let's also put it in the context of like it's 2-3 months out to a deadline. there's only so many package folks you can even take on at this point. You don't want to feel like you're rushed or they're rushed. You can say a combination of things. One being, hey, just FYI, if you were to go for a package, I'd be able to guarantee that I'm going to work with you super extensively throughout the whole process. If you were to come back to me in 6 weeks for ad hoc work, I just can't guarantee I'll be available. Potentially, but it's something that I think this is another part of the comprehensive package, that the benefit of it. But I think one other thing that kind of takes the pressure off is, hey, I think it would be great if we had a decision by XYZ date, but talk to a couple coaches. This is a huge investment. I know none of this is cheap. And I want you to feel like every single dollar you put in, you get discrete value back. And you feel like it's more than worth it. And I think that combination of things, of setting like a soft deadline, but also really articulating like you understand that this is an investment from their side and that it's a significant one potentially for a lot of people. So I think that duality works pretty well. And to the point earlier, builds just a lot of trust.
It's great. I love that, Ben. Okay. This one is probably more important for people that are maybe hourly clients or kind of just getting going. But we've seen some coaches that like have intro calls and bookings immediately after, and it's usually because they sort of like set up their first session on the call, send them a link right after, send a recap right after, drive commitment even if they're early, that kind of thing. And this also helps, like, as a sales team, I think, if Andrew were here, who, we're taking like dozens of sales calls every single week, and we're routing them to who we think would be the best coach. Many of you have obviously gotten leads from that. We love to send people to coaches that are good at driving commitments, or good at kind of getting people to move. But I think it depends a lot on the situation. You can figure out what's best. I think one thing I will call out is that coaching is not something that a lot of these people have done before, and it's often something thought of in a moment of anxiety, stress, excitement, hope, energy, whatever it is, similar to like signing up for a gym membership or signing up for a therapist or whatever, all things that are good, but that you can kind of punt and you can say, oh, I'll deal with this later. And so in the moment where they are actually considering it, it's really important that you capitalize on those moments and help them feel excited and energized and like you are going to be there. It always is sad when we will talk to customers and they'll say, oh, I'll wait and do coaching later because us or the coach or whatever kind of punt them off. And then 3 weeks before the deadline rolls around, they come to us in a frenzy. Like, I don't know what I should have done this earlier. I'm regretting that I didn't commit with a coach. And so a lot of it is like we know the playbook to help them reach their goal, and we want them to move because now is the time, because they are kind of thinking about it. And you don't, work gets busy or whatever, something gets busy and they end up not reaching their goal. So I think recognizing that energy is super important. We already talked about this. I think I liked what you said, Ben. I think honest urgency and honest scarcity is important, because you don't want a lot of these people, but I do think it is worth saying things like, I have a couple spots left. Those will likely book up in the next couple of weeks, or I can't guarantee that they won't book up. That also helps them feel like, hey, if I commit to you, I'm committing to you. And I'm not going to just take on unlimited clients like, any bad actor out there. I'm not optimizing for revenue here. I'm optimizing for your success. And this is how I kind of filter down my client list. This is really important. And I know there's some of you on this call. I think, Avi, you do a really good job of this, of creating kind of that urgency to get people to move. So, and I know lots of you do this as well. I've obviously been in contact with you about the actual number of slots. Andy, we've been back and forth on that the last couple of weeks too. Okay, we're almost done with the pre-sale stuff. We've talked about this. Follow up regularly, post intro call. We will sometimes get coaches that will ping us.
John, I'm sorry. I heard my name, but then a call came in, so I didn't hear the rest of it. Did you call me did you?
Oh, I just said you're really good at something. I was complimenting you.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
I said you're good at creating urgency and scarcity. Yeah. So to get people to kind of commit to you. And I think that's a really good thing. And Andy's good at that as well. So I think, yeah, we talked about this a little bit, that Tim does the recaps, custom plans, discounts, wherever's needed. We do sometimes get pings from coaches that are like, hey, have you talked to this, this person lately and heard where they're at? And sometimes we have, but sometimes, like, if you've taken the intro call, we consider you the the best relationship to follow up with that person. And there's ways to do that in a non-desperate way. Obviously, you don't want to be pinging them every 5 minutes saying, hey, sign up, sign up, sign up. But just checking in and saying, hey, just so you know, signed up another client today. Want to make sure that you get a slot if you're interested. Here's kind of when I expect to be full, or would love to work together. Let me know if you want to, if you have any other questions before we get started. That kind of thing is really helpful, and it's really helpful coming from the coach. That being said, I will also call out that if there's someone that you really think is a good fit and is very high intent, let us know, because we do have relationships with many of our customers and we will help you close them. And that is something that our team, we're getting better at that, and are kind of ramping up our capacity for that. So definitely keep us in the loop and let us know. Okay. Anything else pre-sale that I've missed or that is worth calling out? Okay, we're gonna keep rolling. You guys gave me a lot of good thoughts. Thank you for. Or Tim, were you gonna say something?
Just like, sorry, and the call dropped for a second, so I apologize if this was already said, but like, just I like to make the point on the investment side of like, if they get a scholarship or get admitted to a program, like multiple programs, and can parlay a scholarship, like oftentimes you can save a bunch of money by working with somebody who's really experienced. So I think around the cost, like it can be helpful to highlight that as like one opportunity of how it can be worth the investment.
Yeah, that is a great. I think framing this as an investment, both in terms of being able to pay it back in scholarships, and being able to get into a school that opens up new opportunities that can be life changing. This hopefully is like the most the highest ROI investment, because the reality is like, if we were to be selling slots into HBS at 50K a pop, like we would sell out tomorrow, right? But that's obviously not what we're selling. And there's of course expectation setting along with all of this. But if you were to say, hey, this is like, you only have one, maybe two shots at this, put your best foot forward. Don't leave this up to complete chance. I think framing that investment in the right way is super helpful. Love it. Okay. We're going to breeze through some of these. We have about 25 minutes left. And we do have to end right at the hour, because this Zoom is going to be used by Tim, who's hosting a session or hosting an event right after this. So the best coaches do a good job of bringing structure to the relationship. I think I've probably gotten a lot better at this. I didn't used to do this very much. I know probably lots of you fall into a similar bucket of like, maybe had some sort of light playbook, but it helps a lot when there is some sort of kickoff doc. I think, Carrie, you sent a kickoff doc to Mike. He said that was really helpful, just to say, hey, here's how we're going to work together, or here's generally like a little bit about me so you can get to know me quickly, and I can be your point person. Timeline trackers, obviously, even if they're lightweight, just to kind of give them a sense for when things are due, whether you can build a Notion hub, Google Drive setups, whatever it is for you that works best. This doesn't need to be overkill. But I think having some sort of playbook. When I worked with Andy when I applied to business school, and I wasn't a comprehensive package client, but we still kind of followed a playbook of, all right, we're going to tackle your resume first, and then we're going to do your recommender docs, and we're going to talk through that, and then we're going to work through this or that. And we had a good understanding of when things were due, and that really helped me, and I think helps a lot of the clients. I talked to a client yesterday that actually worked with another firm because he hadn't heard of Leland, and then found out about Leland and kind of used us later in his cycle, and was kind of giving me feedback on what he liked more about Leland than the firm that he had worked with. And he said the biggest thing that his coach did at Leland was they knew and they communicated the bar to get in. And I think that's really, really valuable. This is, it's impossible for you guys to stay up on every little thing that's happening in the MBA world. Hopefully, collectively, we can stay up on and share ideas together. But I think there is definitely like a way for us to, or for way for you to be able to like stay up on the trends, and also be able to say like, this isn't going to cut it. This is not good enough. It's well written, but it's not creative enough. It's not different enough. It's not whatever it is, like whatever they need help with. Making sure that they understand the bar and doing that in a supportive way. That's like, hey, I'm going to help you reach that bar, but where we're at now is not. I always think about something that Andy, you said to me when we were working together. You said something about like, these essays are okay, but there's a lot of really important changes we need to make. And that to me communicated like I'm not at the bar. That was really helpful for me because I could kind of kick it into gear. And my mom, who told me my essays were great, was wrong. And I hope, thankfully did not go with my mom. Which is why you obviously have someone that is not your parent helping you apply to school. We do have lots of resources in Leland Plus. If any of you have kind of poked around, you can see what other coaches are contributing to that. If you contribute to it, you get access to it. So that's a helpful way. Sharing insights on Slack. I think Jerry, who was a colleague of Carrie's at HBS, was kind of talking about HBS changing their essays the other day in Slack. And like those are just valuable things for us to hopefully share with each other. And I hope Slack can be a good place for us to at least start there, and we can contribute and add more to that over time. Okay. We've talked about this, so I won't spend too much time on this, but like recognizing the seriousness of this investment is super valuable. And I think this shows up in just how you treat the client and how you care about them, and how I think, one of the things that Andy did was rounded down to the nearest increment of 5 minutes when he would use my time that I would load to the balance, which like he could have been making it up and I would have appreciated him saying that, because it just made me feel like he cared about the 2 minutes he used on my essay. And I knew it made me feel like he was actually tracking it correctly, and it just communicated his seriousness. Obviously, package clients, there's this weird thing with package clients where package clients think that they're going to get a better deal on your time because they're doing a package, and coaches think that they're going to get a better deal because their person is committing all in. So it sort of sets up this like inherent challenge where like the customer's like, hey, how many hours am I getting? And the coach is like, you're not hiring me hourly, you're hiring me to like help you reach this goal. So just communicating how serious you are taking that, and being able to show up for the client how they need is really important. And there also is times where you talk to a client and you're like, I think the expectations are going to be unrealistic here. It's not something I want to take on. And that's okay. I've fired customers in the past as well. Would obviously encourage you to try it out and see if we can make it work. And if it's someone that's high intent, that's not a fit, you can ping us and we can help them find someone else that's a better fit for them. So this is my own personal perspective, but I do feel like the best coaches are comfortable getting in the weeds. You're obviously not being drafted to write their application. We want Leland to be a very ethical place where you're not just paying for someone to come and write an essay for you. But I do think there's definitely a way to like edit and get in the weeds, review things, review everything, right? Like review the submissions they're going to make in the extracurriculars and the awards and the honors and the responsibilities at their work, and things that matter that if they have mistakes on could kind of play a role. Litter their docs with comments and kind of demand excellence from them. And often I think that requires you to go through their stuff, but it also creates so much work on their end that the work doesn't need to be, in many ways, like you should never be the bottleneck because you're always generating more work for them when you're editing things. One question I had for just the general group is how do you guys manage clients that are bad writers? Just point blank, bad writers. And they write their first drafts and you litter it with comments and they write the next draft and it's just not hitting the bar. How do you guys think about navigating those situations?
John, this is such a good question. My first, someone who got an interview with, I think, both Stanford and Harvard this past cycle for deferred, her first essay included everything from like braggadocio around her grades to a random breakup she had. It was like, if you could just make a soup with all the wrong ingredients in it, that was the essay. I think one of the best things that you can do is avoid the brutal, like, professor gives you a D- on your paper, asynchronous relationship. I think one of the best things you can do is just get on a call after that first draft and don't just tell them their draft sucks, in so many words. Even if you say it nicely, they'll get the picture. Show them what good looks like. Have an example essay or two, ideally, that is targeted. If they're writing the YGSB essay, bring your own, bring some other essay and give them an idea of like, here are the tactical differences and here are the conceptual differences that separate these essays. And you can say, this isn't a personal thing. This is just me trying my best to channel what admissions is going to see and what they're going to take away from your essay. And I think that approach sometimes removes the like potential for you just devastating them with your first salvo there.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with all of that. I think what I would add is what I like to do technically, also showing examples is great, but I like to redline the intro and the closing paragraph and show them what like a good piece of writing looks like at the beginning and the end. And then I help them fill in the bullets in the middle and hope that they can kind of structure the writing around that. But candidly, like if they're a bad writer, it looks like a lot of red lines. And I think they start to understand the concept and get the picture the more times you go through that exercise.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's interesting. What I've found is that sometimes bad writing is just laziness. And there's been times where I've like had to sit and usually one thing I will do with my clients is I will say, hey, I try to be like a really nice person generally. And the way I want to run our relationship though is one of being very direct because it's just more efficient. And if I'm dancing around, like it's just going to be harder to communicate things. Like you just know I'm on your team and everything I'm telling you is to like help you reach your goal. And if we run into a situation where it's just not going to cut it, I think, yeah, whether it's hopping on a call, Ben, there is sometimes where I've kind of called an emergency meeting and I'm like, hey, these need to be so much better. Like we gotta level this up. And by the time they hit me, I need you to have worked a little bit harder on them to get them to a place that you're confident that it's high quality because I can't write this essay for you. And I think that's yeah, those are really good additions.
Hey, John, this is Faisal. Sorry, I
Hey,
joined a little late. Nice to
no
meet
problem.
everyone. I'm relatively new to the Leland platform. One of the things that I found that works really well for me is I start with what I call a version 0 of an essay. And the way I explain to a client is this is just going to be bullets, right? We've talked about your framework and we've conceptualized and strategized. As you're putting pen to paper, version 0 is nothing more than bullets about what you're going to say in your intro, what you're going to say in the first paragraph, second paragraph, all the way to the conclusion,
Yeah,
and send that to me first. And so I found that when I take that approach, I'm able to nip in the bud any of this bad writing because I'm seeing it early on. And then you're beginning this dialogue where it's a true coaching dialogue, and you're directing them towards what a good story will be. And then they send
yeah,
you V1 and you're off to the races.
yeah. I like that a lot. Thanks for that addition. This is great. Okay. Only a few more tips here. The best coaches do a good job of helping to kind of control the recommender process. This is like, we obviously, do our best to help coaches know how to support recommenders and how to help folks navigate this process. We've created, a bunch of different templates. I know you guys have a bunch of different templates to help recommenders kind of feel prepared. And in my process, when I was working with Andy, we did lots of drafts on those recommender docs. They were not something that we just like threw together and tossed to the recommenders. They were something that we were really thoughtful about, obviously, in picking the recommenders and then in preparing them and kind of communicating how to do a good job. This is something that I felt like personally, I never would have in a million years invented on my own. Like it would have been like really hard for me to know how to do this on my own. And it's something that I think is kind of low hanging fruit for coaches to really feel like, the client to feel like the coach knows what they're doing and really help them. The other thing that I will often offer to my package clients, or even hourly clients, is to say, hey, if your coach is kind of struggling or has never really done this before, you can tell them that you're working with someone, and I'm more than happy to get on the phone with them, or more than happy to edit their recommendation if they want you to feel out of the process. And that's a nice way for the recommender that's like, I don't know if I want this person to read it. Maybe I do, maybe I don't care, but I'm more than happy to take a look at it and just review it to make sure that it's on track. It's obviously a little bit harder to redline, everything a recommender does. You can kind of depends on who the recommender is. But it is helpful for like big red flag recommenders. And there was a time where I read one and I was like, this is quite far. They are writing this as if it is an evaluation, and that is a huge risk. And we had actually been considering another recommender, and we decided to pull one recommender and go with another one, which wasn't ideal either. But I think that being involved in that process is really important. Sorry, I realize there's a lot of stuff on the chat that I've not been following, but if there are any questions, feel free to hop on. Great. Any thoughts on recommenders? I also have a class that I taught on the recommender preparation and selection that I put in Leland Plus as well. So if folks are, if you're, curious about more or want, I'm also teaching in our upcoming boot camp on that topic. So happy to talk to anyone else that has questions on that. Okay, so we talked about some of these things as well, but the best coaches are really good at being professional. They respond in a timely manner. They cancel meetings, as early as possible. It doesn't always end up being 24 hours in advance. Sometimes it's earlier, sometimes it's later. But I think just making sure that your client never feels like they're a burden to you. And I think this is especially true if people do have other things going on. I know many of you are full-time coaches. Many of you have other things that you're balancing. Even if you are a full-time coach and you just have family or other things, like making sure that they know when you are available or how you can be to them in certain times is really valuable, so that they don't feel like, oh man, maybe I should have gone with this other person that was more available because I just don't feel like I'm getting through to this person. We do hear this sometimes, like, hey, there's really clear to me who on Leland is a professional coach and who on Leland is not a professional coach, which we expect there to be some difference. That you guys are the best of the best for a reason, and many of you are kind of leveling up and are in the process of leveling up. But we would obviously love for as many of our coaches as possible to kind of maintain that bar, at least in terms of having a clear SLA, even if that SLA is 48 hours or 72 hours, not 24. All right, and then the last one is maybe an obvious one, but it's just they show that they care, they inspire, they build confidence, they challenge, they're there for them, they support, they respond. Some of our most special coaching and customer relationships are ones where they literally become friends after. I've gotten screenshots from actually many of you that are like, hey, I love this client. I'm going to be in touch with them for years to come. There's a reason why they're calling you or texting you right when they get in, because like right after their parents, they're calling their coach because they just felt like you were in the process with them. This is a stressful process. I think sometimes as a coach, it's easy to forget how stressful these folks are, like how hard these processes are. You're kind of exposing your soul to many of these admissions committees, and they're telling you that that's not good enough. And having someone that can be there as a spot checker and as someone that can make them feel like this was a worthwhile exercise. One of the most special testaments to the quality of coaches on Leland has been when people don't get in, they still say they're so grateful for their coaching experience. And obviously we would much prefer everyone to get into their dream schools. And it's great that does happen often. But it's also amazing that we don't really have that many people that come pounding the table saying, hey, I need a refund. My coach wasn't great and I didn't get in, because almost every one of them feels like their coach went above and beyond, was there for them, and did do their best. And they know that there is, some tough things about this process that make it just super competitive. So, yeah, that's all I had for you guys. Anything you guys would add that I missed in terms of managing? I mean, there's so much obviously to managing a client relationship, but would love to hear any thoughts.
Yeah, John, I feel like one thing we touched on it in some ways, but I feel like as a coach, if you want to do this at scale and you want to level up, like systematize everything. Like your eyes should always be on, like, you should never lose sight of like the individuals that you're working with, but every single chance you get to templatize something, not in a way that you can't ever be personal, but like, and you always should be, but like you should have a general idea of what you are going to send, maybe 2 or 3 different like templates you work from, things you're going to send before, during, after intro calls, things like that. You should have some sense of like, what is your documentation process for recommenders? Do you have like a roadmap for interview prep? If for yourself, even if nobody ever sees it, build out your own playbook for yourself for each component of the process that you work on heavily. I feel like when I started doing that was when I found myself being like, actually, I can take on 2 more people. Or like, hey, actually, I am finding more balance to this and I'm enjoying it more. And I feel like I'm not wasting my time with like rewriting the process for each component from scratch and just delivering the stuff that I'm actually good at.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great tip. I think, yeah, it brought me just one other thing to mind, which is that let us help you. we want, like, what we've found is that when coaches come to us and say, hey, I really want to grow on this platform, like, what's the playbook? We kind of know how to do that, and we will flag to the folks that are on sales calls. We will help you set up events. We will, put you in front of the right people. We can help you grow. So definitely let us know. And if something's not working or you have feedback, like, we try to be as receptive as possible, but we genuinely, or we'll tell you, like, we don't think that what you coach for is, is going to scale, but everyone on this call has, and just given the size, coaches are earning millions of dollars a year in just MBA as a category on Leland. So we know that there's appetite. Many of you are doing very well on this platform, and I know many of you are new to the platform. And we want to help you grow as well. So please let us know how we can help. Okay.
I'll chime in with, okay, go ahead, John.
Avi, you got it. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to chime in with one last thing, kind of going back to what you were talking about with adding value and making things meaningful. So I'm at home taking care of my sick daughter right now. And so it was occurring to me as I'm going upstairs, and that's why you saw me moving, on camera today, going upstairs and feeding her, checking in with her, asking her, sort of probing questions about how she's doing, how she's feeling. It occurred to me, she feels loved. Okay. And why does she feel loved? Because I'm proactively anticipating things that she might be experiencing rather than having her come to me saying, I'm hungry, I'm scared about, missing volleyball practice or whatever. And so I apply the same thing to my clients. Whether or not, like you said, John, they're successful in the outcome, they always felt loved and cared for and supported and looked after in the process. So whether it's me kind of, hey, I haven't heard from you a couple of days. I know you're on draft 2 revision. That was due to me Wednesday. It's Friday. Just want to check in. How you doing? Are you having trouble with it? Hey, I know you've been on vacation for a week, and we're going to kind of hold off on this. Just want you to know I've worked on, your resume and blah, blah, blah for when you get back. Even emotional stuff. See, I know last time we spoke, it was sort of, an intense conversation with stuff that's, kind of been going wrong with this, that, and the other, but just stuff like that lets them know, this person cares about me. That's a big part of it. Like you mentioned, the emotional component, I can anticipate things that they might be experiencing emotionally or whatever, and just kind of addressing that. I know we're out of time, but just wanted to chime in with that.
That is an awesome way to end. Yeah, so good. Totally agree. I think, Avi making me cry over here. You sound like a great coach and a great dad. Very true, Avi. Yeah, thank you. That's a wonderful way. It's truthfully the hardest part about us vetting coaches is we can look and see, oh, this person's impressive, but are they gonna care? Are they gonna be all the things that don't show up on their LinkedIn? And that is that's really what separates the greats for sure. Is lots of people can be impressive, lots of people can be smart, but I think the coaches that can really figure out how to support and love and care and encourage and celebrate and just be there for someone. It's what makes coaching life changing. Not just, we've heard this a long time, that content can be super informative, but coaching can be life changing. And I think that's very true. All right, friends, so this is great. Thank you for joining. I hope you got something from this, and yeah, we're excited to continue to grow with all of you, and yeah, let us know how we can support.
Anyone have any final questions before we stop recording?
I think we're
Good luck
good.
good luck in your event, Tim. Hey, don't screw it up, man.
Thanks. Oh, thanks, Ben. Yeah. I was going to. No, I won't. Yeah.
Thanks.